David, welcome to the show. It is good to see you. I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm going to jump in. Folks are gonna get to know you during the show, and we're gonna have your LinkedIn and all that information. I, in preparation for this, I was thinking about when we first met, and I'll give you my version of it, and we'll see if our things match. I think I was at Coca-Cola at the time. This is in the '07 area. Back then, ladies and gentlemen, I was actually one of the young wonder kids in this business. I was one of those deals. And I can't believe it's now 2024. To give you a span of what has happened since then, we used to talk about your kids as kids. I remember meeting your son, fantastic young man, like years later, and next thing you know, there's kids are getting married, and I'm like, maybe I'm not so, I'm
Yeah,
not, I'm not, maybe I'm getting
it's true.
old as well. So, uh, David, one of the reasons I'm excited to chat with you is in our early version of our relationship, both work and personally, I saw you all of the time. I moved from Coca-Cola. I went to Teleflora, and we would host you, and we would meet all of those. And that was the basis of our relationship. We'll have phone calls, and we'll meet in person. Same with the members. David is the founder and CEO of a networking group. And if I think now of the last 4 or 5 years, your organization has put me in touch with many wonderful people I now consider friends. I think about people like Michelle Martinez, who was on this show a few weeks ago. Um, and I've never met some of these people. And I might never meet some of these people. And that is what is different. So I would love to start this conversation by saying, do we still need in-person gatherings? Or is that no longer a need for those of us in professional circles who need to get together every now and then?
Thanks for having me. And I think at the root of this, Amos, is people's desire to connect with colleagues that are dealing with the same kind of challenges.
Yep.
So, you talk about the early days. I don't even want to bring up the fact that we were pre-internet in some degrees, right? So you left out the part about writing letters, right, and sending faxes, but literally when we got started, that was it. It
Yeah.
was snail mail and fax. When you're communicating with people and customers, and regardless of how you communicate, there is no replacement for physically getting to see and meet people. And I believe when you meet someone like Michelle Martinez or any of the other people, you almost feel like you can hug them, like you
Yes.
really know them.
Yes.
But if you try to hug someone over a virtual interaction, it's a little uncomfortable. I've tried. So, it's, but yes, the bottom line is I think that just at the root of what we enjoy doing and how we enjoy sharing and helping each other and watching people's reaction, I think you need to be in person.
Like, how does that translate in real life? You do this all of the time. Tell me a story when you've seen this kind of how powerful and meaningful it is for people to just get together in person.
I've seen so many different examples of that, right? I think people really have low expectations of what's going to happen face to face. More often than not, something bad's going to happen, right? Somebody's going to
Right.
try and convince me that the Earth is square and whatever, because they come in predisposed with an agenda. But when you create an environment where people really can um, have a two-way conversation, engage both ways, you start to see some kind of magic, and you start to see that relationship unfolding. I don't think people really come to meetings that we've produced over the years with an expectation of developing a relationship, but they certainly leave with one, and they maintain those relationships.
Right.
And I guess a story of that was we had a brand new member in a market we had not been in years, Baltimore, D.C. area, uh, attend an event we were doing in Colorado. And I literally said, "What are you doing here?" Right? I mean, because those people just
Baltimore and
come.
Colorado are not
No, it's just down
not
the
close.
street, right? And she said, "I've been looking for a group like this that I could interact with, and I
Mm,
was willing to fly across the country to make it happen." That's how important gathering with peers is to people, certainly in our industry.
that's magical. I want to stick to that member you're talking about. I'm going to assume an operator, someone who is actually trying to fix their contact centers and grow.
Mhm,
And I know your heart is with those folks, and so am I. As you know, I've spent most of my life in those kinds of cheers.
mhm.
As someone who has the opportunity to speak at these conferences, to attend many of these things, I think that most of these in-person events have done a great job catering to, if you're a technologist and I lean in that way, man,
Mhm.
it's fantastic. If you're a propeller head, consultant who are keeping up, oh my gosh, I leave those things, I'm like, man, AI flying cars are coming, this is great. But then when I think to my core of my people, the guy and the gal who is just trying to improve whatever, handle time,
Mhm.
FCR, I think most of these events in person, small, large, I've largely left those folks behind. And I see it in my day to day world. And it's coming at a time, David, when the world could not be more complicated and they could not need more support. So no wonder someone is driving or whatever, flying from Baltimore to, because it can be a lonely world out there. And a lot of these conferences keep operating here and have missed them. So I'm not going to ask you to speak for the entire industry, but I will ask you to speak for the entire industry. Can you comment on operators feeling left behind by the entire networking industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just basically comes down to a misalignment of goals. Events, couple things we know. People don't come for the turkey sandwiches.
Yep.
Events, events try to wow you with location, with platters of shrimp, you name it, waterfalls, eh, none of which has anything to do with anything, right? But they cost money.
Yeah.
And so when you peel the onion back and you say, okay, if we're going to put on an event and we want to get X amount of people here, what does that look like? And when your investors are saying these are the things we need, and that's where the funding is coming from, you can get off track with what the true reasons as to why an operations person would be there. We've had a number of conversations over the years,
Yeah.
including one just 12 months ago, where an event coordinator said, "We got it. We're going to take a different angle on it. It's going to be awesome." You know the story. And I said, I really don't want to call your baby ugly yet. We just don't know each other. But how about I get together 12 leaders, you sit and chat with them. And at the end of the hour, if you still feel you're on the right track, I'll just bow out. You'll never hear from me again. To a person, they said, we would not go to something like that. And the last person, who was a vice president, said, well, we would send people to, and we have sent people to something like that. And at this point, she's grasping at straws. Great, tell me what he said. It'd be a reward. We don't expect them to learn anything. She, so that's the misalignment,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like if you sit in a room and everyone tells you you're fantastic, right? You start to believe it. You start believing AI and the flying cars, and everybody believes in AI. We're all going. except the people that are actually supposed to be deploying something like that, they're like, hold on, guys, you're a little bit ahead. I do believe that there's a gap between the
Yes.
positioning of tech leaders. They have to be innovative and out there, right? Consumer electronics show. But reality is 6, 8, 10, 12 years behind them when deployment for the vast majority. And so are you talking about what they're dealing with now? Or are you taking the approach, hey, we don't need to talk about that. We talked about that 10 years ago. We're out here on, planet Zoom, right? Whatever, right? So I think that's part of the problem.
Look, I'm still laughing at the comment. I want to make sure I heard this right. A VP was in the room going, "Yeah, this event may make sense, but the ROI of this event is it'll be a reward trip. We are going to send our
100%.
employee to this conference, boondoggle in Vegas. We know they're not getting anything out of it, but they've worked hard this this year.
Exactly.
Uh,
I
let
couldn't
them
make
go."
this stuff up. It's not hard if you know the people, ask them.
And what do you do if you think about CCNG? How do you think about this gap? You are now in this spot where most of your members are these people, operators who are running contact centers day in and day out. What do you try to do to help fill that gap?
Well, I think the first thing you do is you listen, right? You say, here are 3 things we think you want to talk about, and then they say, yeah, no, that's not what we want to talk about. Yeah, if I may, the very first time we ever got together with a group of people like this, we wrote down issues they wanted to talk about, and now 35 years later, they're the same issues, people issues
Hmm,
and process issues.
interesting. Interesting.
So the key rule is if you know your community, ask them what's important and do that. It's not that hard. It
Mm,
is hard if you don't know the community. Then you have to assume, or you're getting your ear bent by someone who's telling you what's important, and you can get way off track. So what we do to bridge that gap is simply listen and try to boil down some of the topics so that they can participate. I think another you know uh, uh, element of the secret sauce is when people realize, and you went through this, people realize, oh, I'm not just a student here. I actually have
right,
experience because someone asked me a question and I could help them. Well,
right.
that's the two-way conversation that doesn't happen a lot in some of the other programs. They're not designed that way. So we try and keep everyone get engaged on topics that matter to that group philosophy, and it's worked well for us.
You know, um, it has worked well for you, and I got to tell you, I mean this. We know each other personally, and we're friends. But I have been maybe the most miraculous thing you've been able to pull off is CCNG now has been around for all of these decades, and it's 2024. And I've never seen a good ad you've ever put out. I haven't seen. I, s- I say this with all the love, David. But uh, you've managed to grow this business and expand and create this brand as being the networking group for actual blue collar contact center workers. I don't know if that's how you frame yourself, but that's how I think about CCNG. How the hell have you done it without commercials, ads, marketing? You do some, but they've not been great. Uh, how have you pulled this off? And I meant all that as a compliment
Yeah, I
somewhere in there.
understand. I understand. I understand. Well, I used to tell people we did newsletters. I can tell you 9 ways not to do a newsletter. So we have failed more than we have succeeded. I recall going to a field event. It wasn't ours, but I thought we better have some promotional material, right? And so we had trifold, because we didn't have a much budget. So we're printing on a low grade printer, and we're literally folding these things and carrying them down there. And literally on the way out the door, my wife says, there's a typo on here. You can't possibly hand this out. So,
Oh,
you know,
oh,
you do what you can do, to keep things moving forward. I was given some great advice early on. Actually, two things. The first thing they said was, if the first 5 years don't kill you, the next five will. And then on the heels of that, they said, don't stop. Most people give up
Mm,
before they reach any level of success. And I guess the
mm,
last piece of that is enjoy the journey, because it's going to be more about the journey than succeeding for the most of us. And so, kind of following that, when you make a connection for someone or help someone move their issues forward and improve, they remember that. They really remember how that happened. And they are quick to tell their friends and colleagues. So
yeah.
we haven't had the opportunity to run large scale commercial ads or anything like that. I'm not even sure we're on a friendly basis with media companies these days, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because
Right.
people find you.
Yeah.
And when they do, they're usually surprised and um, uh, they get value from meeting with their colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, look, I cannot count the number of people that I've personally told about CCNG in some fashion. You never asked me to do any of that, and other people have done that as well. I mean, you go to something, you get value,
Hmm.
um, and it grows organically. Let's break the ice a little bit. I asked my guest an interesting question, which is, what is a purchase $50 or under that has been impactful in your life in some way? Mine would be the Alexa Dot, the small one. That's what I started with many years ago, and it's impacted my life in positive and negative ways. It's turned into somewhat of an obsession. It's taken over my life. I've spent thousands of dollars since automating my home, because God forbid I get up and touch a light switch and turn the light on. What is this? 1950. I could just use my voice. That would be mine. What about you?
Well, it's a no-brainer. It was my wife's the first wedding ring I bought my wife. That's
Oh,
simple.
oh,
Changed my
wait.
life.
Under $50?
Again, we're back to little to no budget and being creative.
But go on. We'll let that go.
Oh, wait a minute. This is going to be shared with public domain. I could get in trouble. She'll now find out that I did was a cubic
After all these
zirconia. She-
years,
You're going to
it's
run to
just
the
like,
jewelry box and go, wait, what? Um, no, I'm not as high tech as you are. But I too have a lot of those little things. I think one of the things that saved my marriage was universal remote, so that kind of goes without saying, right? But the one thing that recently that I kind of got into, and I credit my wife, she bought it for me, and then I've extended on that is a style of cooking. It's a heating element called sous vide. It's French,
mm,
SOUSVID. And
oh,
basically,
fancy.
once you buy into this whole philosophy, it creates havoc, right? Because now dinner doesn't take 15 minutes, dinner takes 4 hours to prepare, right? So, but it's not like a crock pot, and you feel like you're really accomplishing. I was
Mm-hmm.
at a dinner in a house with guests, not my house, and they were talking about sous vide, and one person said, "I don't get it. You cook a piece
I
of
don't get
salmon,
it.
it takes you 3 hours or whatever. And I can cook a piece of salmon in 15 minutes. What's it?" Thankfully, there was a gentleman there who said, "Well, I worked in the restaurant business at a high-end steakhouse. How do you think we put out 80 steaks or 200 steaks all within minutes of you ordering them? They're pre-prepared to the level of now we can make them medium rare, rare, whatever." And it added credibility to the whole concept of sous vide. But if you look it up, it really is it's a different style of cooking, and I've really enjoyed it.
Well,
Much
I
to the
look.
demise of my family, I've really enjoyed it.
I'm sure. Like, listen, I'm already smoking. I got a smoker. I figured if I had one more thing, I will become a menace. So I've stayed out. Um,
It's important to
I
know where the lines are,
oh,
Amos.
I gotta go. I'm not gonna pick up. I'm not gonna pick up one more thing. I want to ask you, maybe as we're wrapping up here, I want to talk a little bit about look forward. talked about how we got here and where we are. As I look forward into the future, if I zoom out from even our industry, I
Mhm.
think about the metaverse. I don't know if Zuckerberg has given up on that or not. You know, Apple just released a vision thing. We are doing this podcast. You're not in the same studio as me. You are in a completely different state, and the world is headed in that direction. As someone who is at the center of it with CCNG, how do you think about the future, the next generation, if you will, of networking? Not just, let's expand it beyond CCNG, which you have control over, but how do you think about the future of like-minded professionals getting together with all the changes going on in the world?
You know, I got a call one day from a broker representing a financial investor, and he said he wanted to talk to me about the business model. And I just made the assumption he was in our space, and he wasn't. And when we boiled it down to, he said, actually, this investor invests in hair salons. Now, I couldn't, but what they realized that what we had done at its essence is bringing like-minded people together and being able to share experiences, good, bad, and ugly.
Right.
And they thought they could bring that into their business world. So
Oh,
to answer your question, I think that there's a whole lot of push to move communications digitally. Um, uh, you know better than I do that voice communications isn't going anywhere in
no.
my feeling in anytime soon. And leading to voice would be face to face. So independent of the world that we live and independent of the industries that we are in, I really believe, certainly maybe I should just narrow this down to the service community. People need to know they're on the right track, whether that's talking to an employee, whether that's talking to their leader, whether that's talking to their customer. This overall world of experience, whether you talk a lot about customer experience, uh, that is harder to achieve and accomplish and maintain if you're not taking time to face interact with people. So I have no idea, you know better than I, what's coming next gen. But I can tell you from the last 3 years, I didn't see a pandemic coming. I didn't see us being
Right.
sidelined on physical events, right? And I didn't see the taking off of video, unlike we tried to get it to go somewhere. People just didn't have an appetite for it. But now that they've been in, they don't want to let that go, but they still want to meet face to face. So is that going to change over time? I think it's human nature. I really don't think
I
it'll change.
I completely agree with you, by the way, that there's a quote or saying, I don't know who says this, I don't know who to attribute it to, but the end of the quote is like, we have godlike technology with primitive brains. And what that means is for all of our AI phones and all of that, right? We still have this 10,000-year-old operating system that still needs human connection, right? That has fears and irrationality and all of that. That's who we are. Like, so it doesn't matter the equipment, the tools we built, unless someone figures out a way to biologically change who we are. We need to be mindful of the things that will never change. And so as I kind of wrap up now, and I'll turn it over to you, I want to leave people with the idea that I think why networking matters to me, why the fact that organizations like yours brings contact center leaders together in a room to solve problems centered around some event and some topic. And what ends up happening? What ends up happening to that event is the brochure says, hey, come listen to Amos speak about insert topic here. And the feedback I get time and time and time again when I do one of these events is they go, Moss, you were fine, you were great. But what I really came here to see were these people, these other folks who came in here who have the same problems, the same things that I have. And I have grown to really love that. That while the thought leadership and whoever, someone's got to kick this thing off. And I've
Sure.
increasingly seen my role as one as getting the party started. Maybe I have something to say that invokes this, but in the end, they don't say it in this direct term. But I always hear this whole thing that I came here. Yes, I came here to watch you. Here, but the real reason, the real value of what I got here was the fact that you were here. You were going to draw people who looked like me, were solving the same problems I was in different ways. And those
Mhm.
people is what was worth the cost of admission. How do you think about what do you want to leave people as you think about this whole topic of getting together?
I think you're spot on. And I think those who organize these events oftentimes see it as if we can put it in a better venue.
Mm,
If the keynote can be a more recognized, let's get Mariah Carey. Okay, now
right.
how is that going to change my desire to meet the guy 2 rows up and 4 seats over? It doesn't. So anytime people are gathering, well, I don't care what industry, but anytime people say, hey, I'm thinking about going to this meeting, go. You will never know until you go to see where the value is. But at the end of the day, most meetings are set up, and I'll say two things that typically happen. They're set up for the thought the content leaders, right?
Yep.
So we
Yep.
got what's better than 3 Amases? 5 Amases,
Right.
right? Right?
Right.
I think podcasts and webinars are set up a little bit like this too, in that the content is 55 of the 60 minutes, and now
Right.
anyone got a question? Whereas it's completely reversed. We're going to
Mm,
give you 5 minutes on establishing the content piece, and then let's talk about it. Because at the end of the day, what we've found is that the people who come, who are told they're coming to listen, probably need to do the speaking, and the people that are coming to do the speaking probably need to do the listening.
yeah.
Because if that can happen, then we all learn something.
That is a wonderful sentiment. And when I come to CCNG events, um, these days, I think you've noticed I do a lot more listening than speaking, and that is hard for me because I've never met a mic that I didn't want to didn't want to speak.
Sure,
But the
sure.
reason I do it is I get a lot from it because I could be in my ivory tower painting the picture of this world of we're gonna do this that. But then the I listen to the people because I don't do that anymore. I want to hear from Joe and Mary, operators running credit union contact centers, small, large BPOs who have to go implement all the stuff that people like me are dreaming up and chastising them. You must be doing this. And I always leave those things a lot smarter than I came because I can quickly hear, yeah, no one is interested in XYZ. Oh, we're going to automate this. Yeah, I'm listening to the people who we are supposedly building this thing for. And they're all like, no, we we don't want it. And I understand if I were in the software licenses business, I've got to build it because I don't have anything else to sell. I'm not. Uh, and so it's instructive for me as someone whose job is to help these executives make the best decision based on what they have to spend time listening. So I just want to point out you are so spot on that the listening and the formats makes a world of difference.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot from people that have walked a mile, and very often they will share with you And we had one gentleman approach us years and years and years ago, wanted to talk about work from home, and this is many years ago, when everyone was touting the go to work in your slippers and pajamas story. I said, that horse has just been beaten and beaten. He goes, no, 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 I don't think you understand. I want to tell people lessons learned, the potholes, the mistakes to avoid. That's value. That was very
Mm.
valuable. He had an audience in the palm of his hands because he had a credible experience and he shared the mistakes and the assumptions that they made. I don't think it's really changed much. Um, the other thing that you made me think of is we started just talking a little bit about Michelle Martinez. She is not going to be happy with the two of us, by the way, bringing her
I
name.
know.
But I said to her what I say to most people is, before we get you involved, I mean, the real question is, what's in it for Michelle? So when Amos is asked to go speak at a conference, the thing that often is missed is what's in it for Amos. I mean, he's a
Right.
smart guy. He's going to go, share this knowledge, and what? What does he get out of it? So if you flip it over and say, Amos, what would it take? What would the value to you be? And I'm going to bet you it would be, well, in the 60 minutes you got me talking, I'd like to talk about 10 and then have 50 of questions and ideas. And I'd really like to say, that's a great question. Why don't you answer it over here? You guys have been doing, and play facilitator, and you get an audience fully engaged in that way. And that's not the design you see most often. So you made me
Yeah.
think of
No,
those two.
no, that's been brilliant. Well, David, this has been fantastic having you on. Where can folks find you? I know you're on LinkedIn. That's generally where you hang out. We'll put your LinkedIn stuff in the show notes so that people can go find you.
Yeah, I'm still in the witness protection program, so we're not going to go down that. We are, I talked about 9 ways not to do a newsletter. I think we're on revision 7 or 8 of our website, ccng.com. So hopefully when this hits the public domain, the new revision will be out. But that's really the best place to start. And don't judge a book by its cover, but ask us, who can you speak to within the community that can address some of the issues. And I guarantee you, once you start down that path, you'll see the value of being involved in a community. Um, a professional network is key, whether you're looking at, career development or knowledge enhancement or peer support, whatever it is, but having a group of people that are on your side that'll tell you you're on the wrong path or share with you some of that parts of their journey. And I think the key word to all of that is trust. So
Great.
35 years we've been at this, we built a trust community, and getting to know the people that are in the community is the biggest way for you to feel good about getting involved. Whether you reach us on LinkedIn or through the website or however you get started, it's meeting the people behind that first level that'll take you somewhere.
Awesome. Good place to leave it. We'll talk to everyone next week. David, it's been awesome having you on the show. We hope you'll come back and see us again.
My pleasure, Amos. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to an Amos Talks production.